Welcome to the academic room, where lecturers share their best practices and practical tips on lecturing and the world of academia. Today, we are absolutely happy to have Sonal Jain here with us, who is an associate dean and a lecturer with more than 20 years of experience. I will add her bio into the description, and thank you very much for being here, Sonal. Hello.
Hello, thank you for inviting.
So I asked Sonal, I've been working with her for over a year, and whenever I had a question or an issue to discuss, I was always so impressed how much Sonal goes to the point, is very practical, and this is exactly what we need here in the academic room. So first of all, I'd like to ask you, Sonal, that you teach, I know that you teach management, business, and HR. These are quite complex topics, and for many of the students, it's also abstract. They've never worked in any of these areas. So when you deliver a new material in a lecture, what are your tips? What are your techniques to make it exciting and to keep students on their toes?
Quite a lot.
Yeah, so let's hear this. This is why we have here today.
I'll start with my personal favorite, because that's really my personal favorite. I really try to relate any topic with the real world application. So if I'm teaching about, let's take, for example, corporate social responsibility, I'm not going to start my session by explaining what is corporate social responsibility, what's its significance, what's its challenges. I usually ask students to go look for a corporate social responsibility report, which is nowadays quite easily available through majority of the organization. And then we start from there. So they go through a report first, that is what the organizations are publishing, what type of information are they including. And they start by personal interpretation as why or what is included, why it's included. It's more like an open discussion among students where I'm observing and going around and seeing what they're discussing. And if I feel like, I do put in my thoughts there. So that's my personal favorite. And I do that for almost every module.
Okay.
So even if I'm teaching statistics, that's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, before we go on, because this is very interesting, it also shows how lecturing evolves. That it's not the lecturer, in your view, it's not the lecturer coming to the room and then speaking and reading slides, but it looks like you're involving the students in exploring the subject and making some doing some research themselves, right? Is that right?
Oh yes, I'm a big fan of flipped classroom. And plus, given, remember, these are new generation students. So it's not back our days. The schooling has changed. The education system in itself has changed. Students are smarter. What I'm going to say in 2 hours lecture, they can easily find a video on YouTube, or they can go through any AI platform and extract that information. So for me, as a tutor, it's important that when a student has made an effort to wake up in the morning, travel all the way, and come to campus to attend it, it should be more than what he could have easily got or acquired in the comfort of his home. So it has to be more practical implementation and understanding a few things that is not easily accessible for the time being on the internet.
Do you have them where to research? Do you share with some links with them, or you just tell them that please find your way, and then we discuss what you found?
It depends from topic to topic. Now, corporate social responsibility, I know every large organization publishes them. So I show them, I say them, go to Google, and they're working in groups. They figure things out. Pick a large organization and you'll find a corporate social responsibility report for the large organization. So these are very accessible, so I don't have to provide them a link. However, if I'm asking them for a very specific report or information, and I know it might be challenging or difficult to find, in that case, I might provide a link and say, okay, use this link, go and open this document, and then we start the discussion.
Oh, that's excellent. And then what do you do? So they do their research, then you start a group discussion on what works, how, and then when is it when you step in and a little bit like put everything into a framework, or what do you do then?
Personally, I think the role of lecturer or professor or tutor, whatever you could call, is more or less like filling in the gaps. So it's very clear where, for me, what is really important or significant is during the initial first 2 or maximum 3 sessions, the ground rules are set in the classroom, saying that it's students who will always start the sessions, it's them they'll be providing in the information. And then I'm there if I think they have missed something. I'm there to fill in the information based on my experience and age. I have more knowledge compared to them. So I say the idea is to, by the end of the session, each one of us should be on the same level in terms of information and knowledge. So, for example, if I'm asking them to work on a report, if I'm teaching level 7 students, they're quite mature. So they can read, interpret, analyze, and then each group would have an internal small discussion. However, what really helps me making these activity work is it's very clear and precise, the instruction. So if I want them to open a corporate social responsibility report, I give them clear explanation of what exactly I want them to extract in terms of information, what I expect them in terms of analysis, and then I'm constantly there to assist and supervise, saying that, okay, are they going in the right direction? Is every member of the team engaging or participating? Is there something which is bothering them or stopping them for continuing the exercise? And
that's brilliant. And this
I'm
is
more like a facilitator, let me put it that way.
So that's the lecture bit. It's really fascinating how you make it really interactive. This is really, really great. What do you do when you find out that there are some students who go on the wrong track, or something that they are finding, or something that they are really sharing is probably not the direction that you would like to? What do you do then?
I mean, I ask them questions. I would not go and straight away say, oh, what you have done is wrong, and this is what you should be doing. More or less, I'll say, oh, this is interesting what you have done. Have you thought about this, this, this? And most of the time, 70 to 80% of the cases, students do get the clue.
Yeah, love this, love this. You mentioned some of the list things that you share with them, what you expect. What do you expect from them? So what are the things that you tell them that this is what I expect when you are giving these instructions for the research?
Oh, first thing is there's a ground rule for the classroom, which is set
Okay.
in mutual agreement,
Okay.
saying
What are
that
those?
usually cell phones are not allowed.
Mhm.
In case if it's a personal emergency or something is going on and they need to make a phone call or send a text message, they just need to raise their hand, inform me, and then leave with a mutual agreement. And they know that it's very clear that in every case, I'm going to say yes. Then there's a mutual agreement in terms of the feedback, because it's not only me who provide feedback on students' work, it's students they have to provide feedback on each other's work, performance, information. So the language need to be appropriate. And it cannot be a criticism. So if I say, if, for example, if a student is saying, oh, the presentation was not very engaging, so that's not enough as a feedback. They need to go a step further and say why they think it's not engaging. What is it that made them feel that way? Which element of presentation did they think? And how would they have done differently? So that makes them be a bit conscious about the language and the feedback that they're providing. So it cannot be negative, but it should be more constructive. So it helps us create or retain an environment which is of mutual respect and growth.
Perfect. No, brilliant. I really love this way of creating the lecture or facilitating the lecture, because you can see right away how much they understand. So it's not just you talking and you have no idea where they are, but you really have a constant awareness of the level of their understanding. I really find it fascinating. You mentioned the various levels, and you're teaching on from level 4 to level 7, I think so. what are some of the differences and some practical techniques that you can see as when you teach various levels, and how you change these techniques from level to level?
I mean, for sure, there is a huge difference in the student type in level 4 and level 7, if you're taking the two extreme end of the scale. I'm excluding those mature students. Definitely level 7 has a certain number of mature students who have tremendous amount of work experience. They have a master's degree or a bachelor's degree, but somehow it was not equivalent to UK's academic standard, and they're starting from level 4. So I'm excluding them because they are of an entirely different category. So I'm talking about young graduates who are out of high school and it's their first time in university. So definitely those are less mature students. They are more, they get bored very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
They have less experience or knowledge, awareness about the professional life. Plus the topics and subjects are less complex, and we have to explain them without going too much in depth. Whereas in level 7, it would be more in depth without spending time much into the basics, because we expect them to know or have certain information or knowledge.
Mm-hmm. And when
So
that
when,
sorry, just go ahead. No, I will have a question after that. Go ahead.
so for example, when I'm working with level 4 students, let's assume I'm teaching, I think last time when I was teaching level 4, I was teaching, I was teaching them about motivation. Now, the problem is if I sit and talk about what is motivation, what are the things that motivate individual, these are the multiple theories of motivation, I can bet that after 2 minutes or 4 minutes, no one would be listening in the classroom. So what I usually do is, to make things interesting, I ask them to record, go outside, take 30 minutes, and record, ask 5 people each, and they were working in group, and they use their cell phone, record videos of asking people what motivates them to work. And they came back to the class. I gave them 15 to 20 minutes. I said, make your list of different variables that were listed, saying what is it that motivate. And different people have different perspective of saying why they work, why they are working. And then we started discussing about motivation. And then when we were talking about the theories, student had a base. And they said, oh yes, this elements are listed by my people and the whom I interviewed. And the others were, oh, this is not something which was captured by the people, but it's interesting. And there was a base, and they were engaging. Because I was saying, okay, let's see, whoever has maximum number of factors is the team that wins. So they all were constantly listening and taking and saying, oh,
Yeah.
is this factor covered in the theory that she's teaching? So basically, even if they were listening, it did help me capture their attention and say, and at the end they were listening, we went through 4 or 5 theories of motivation, and they listened to all of them.
That's
Like, oh yes,
brilliant.
we do that. And then they were like, oh, we
They
are
wanted to find out if that matches with the interviews that they had. It's really brilliant. I love this.
And then, of course, they understood that there are different ways in which you can measure motivation. And we studied a bit about how the motivations theory has evolved in time. And it was interesting for them to see that the initial theories, it was more of, there were different focus, and how with time things are changing and people are working for different reasons. So that's something that really helped them. And this works tremendously well with level 4, because they get bored very
This could
easily
be
when we
really
are
good.
talking and
This
talking.
could be good also with other levels. This is excellent, really, to make them find out in video and then listen to how theory relates to what they've just found out. It's really brilliant. And you mentioned gamification, by the way, that you have a little contest of who has more points. Do you use gamification in your teaching overall?
Yes, but I'm more into classic methods. So something
Like
without technology.
okay, like what?
I usually, so I can ask them, there could be small games and elements in the classroom, but majority of the games are working in small groups, and each group is trying to, so for example, last time with my last university, I was teaching them negotiation. So what we did is, again, I didn't want to go and say them what is negotiation, because personally, I think each one of us negotiate with multiple people on a day-to-day basis. Everyone knows how to negotiate. Everyone has a basic understanding of what negotiation is. So what we did is we had a small game where we divided people into small groups, and two groups, so they were all together. I think there were 10 teams, and two teams were negotiating with each other, and they were sitting in the different rooms, so that after, and they have to come to a common room, third room. So they have to send a representative. Those representatives will discuss, and then they'll go back and inform the team, and then come back and for second round of negotiation if needed, or third round of negotiation to see what could be done. And
Wow.
that was really something which students loved, because initially it started quite slow because they thought it would be very simple. But
Yeah.
because different instruction was given to different groups, and different priorities were set, saying that this is what you need to get to win this game through your negotiation by the end. So they found it very interesting that just negotiating for a simple thing, it was a
Yes,
huge
this is
difference.
great. No, this is really good. It's a hands-on experience, really, on how to negotiate. Really amazing. No, this is really, really great. And then let me just come in. Like your lectures seem like the seminar itself. You have a lot of activities and interactivity. So if we go to the seminar, how does it relate to the lecture? Or what do you do there?
Mostly seminars are a continuation of lectures.
Mhm.
So the main idea of lecture is to have a good base on knowledge about a framework or a theory or the concept. And then lectures, we go into more into a practical implementation. So for example, if I've taught SWOT analysis, then seminars would be understanding the practical implementation of SWOT analysis, or how to do a SWOT analysis in certain cases if students have not done that previously. And then what happens with that information. So as a manager, if I have that SWOT analysis, that's just a piece of information. If I don't use it wisely, it's actually words on paper, it's worth nothing. So they need to understand that, yes, information is important, but what actually managers do within this piece of information. And that's what we invest time into SWOT analysis or any other two concepts that we are teaching. And if needed and if possible, usually what I do is I invite my friends to join through online, and then, Teams or Zoom. And then the last 30 minutes of the seminar could be where they're talking with a real manager or a real person and saying, and the person is sharing stories about how do they implement or what do they do with this type of information. So same thing when I was teaching negotiation, I did call a colleague of mine, and then the person was just sharing the story of what happened in a real life negotiation and what was the challenges they faced. And the students were able to relate, and they were saying, oh, our team had a similar challenge. This is something we encountered during our negotiation. Another team was like, oh, ours went quite smooth. We didn't have this challenge, but this was the challenge. So it really helped them understand that quite similar things could happen, and how do we handle things professionally and how did they handle things.
Yeah. What do you think of employability? How, yeah, you mentioned guest lecturers who you invite, and you do a lot of practical activities in the school, but what else do you do? How do you think it has changed over the past 20 years? So what are your thoughts around that? What do you do to help them succeed in their jobs and real life?
So for me, what is really important is they need certain skills just to find any kind of job. It doesn't matter which job you're finding. And my job is always focused on explaining them or making them aware of the significance of soft skills. And explaining them, it's not only the core or the theoretical knowledge that's going to help you acquire that job or your dream work, but it's also your attitude, it's the soft skills, how you communicate. And the communication could be verbal as well as non-verbal. That is the way they are sitting, the way they are listening to people during the interview. And once they are in the organization, you need to be respectful, the kind of vocabulary that they're writing. And one complaint, because I do supervise internship students, so one frequent complaint that I have been, I mean, I don't know how many times that has been brought up by the managers anytime we are contacting them, is the way they write emails. They're saying it's not a text message, you can't write this way. It's important that students know how to write a formal email. And that's something we practice on regular basis with students. So usually what I do, if someone has written an email saying just one line saying, I want this, next day I come to the class, I usually try to hide the name of the students. One or two occasions I might have made an error, but I hide the name of the student, bring that message, and I say, I want to reply to this email, but I'm unable to reply for some reason. So who can tell me why? And then we joke about, and I say, firstly, it doesn't start with hello or good morning, and there's no name of me. Second, the message is it's not in an academic language. And lastly, it doesn't end well. So whoever have sent me this email, if you can send me back the email in a proper, well-structured way, I'll be more than happy to reply it before the end of the day. And they know the fact that if they're sending me an email in a well-structured manner, putting in maximum information that is required to answer their email, they get a reply quickly. However, if someone is sending me an email which is not well-structured and the information lag, they're not going to receive a reply.
Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, that's a
So
really
it's
big.
more or less like a game. And so when they have not received a reply from me in 2 days, they usually come and say, there's something wrong with my email. And I'm like, yes.
They are learning.
And
Yeah.
then we sit together, and it's student who has to say me what is wrong with the email. I'm not going to say them what is wrong with the email, because I think you learn better when you reflect on your actions and say, okay, what did I do wrong? And to assist, I might ask certain questions so that I can guide the student in the right direction. And that also helps me to avoid putting students in an awkward position, where I'm saying, you made a mistake or it's wrong. It's more like a discussion, and it's
Reflection. Yeah. I'm so happy that you brought this example. I remember when you shared this with me, I found it fascinating. And I'm also happy that you mentioned the soft skills. When we talk about employability, it's not only the practitioner aspect of the subject matter that we teach, but also the soft skills, definitely, and how we make an impression with our email or introduction, how we listen, how we speak. Really, really excellent. One area that I'd like to still mention in this interview is that you mentioned already that some students might be bored, or there could be students who distract the session with talking to others, or they could, just read their mobile. What do you do then? So do you have some practical tips on dealing with these cases?
majority of the time during my session, by third session, they know that they are not allowed to use cell phones. And the rule applies to each one of us, including myself. So we have this funny thing. We say, okay, cell phone goes inside the bag, or it's facing, the cell phone's face need to be the other way around so that you can't see. And that applies to me. So at any given time, I don't touch my cell phone. And I say, the rules are same. It's one roof, one rule. So they'll know that I'm not going to touch my cell phones, and they will not do the same. And if they need to use them, they need to leave the class, go out, and come back. So usually cell phones are not the main cause of distraction. However, there are times when I remember once I had the 2 or 3 students who were tremendously tired and exhausted, and they were working in group, but they were not participating enough. But the moment you go and ask them that, is there something wrong? Are you okay? I don't see you participating like any other day. Majority of the time it does the magic and they're like, oh, she's looking and she did observe that I'm not working, and they start working. And then in certain cases, we still have students who are working or they have done something the previous day, and they're so exhausted and tired that they're incapable of working at this given moment. So usually what I recommend them is, why not take a 10 to 15 minutes break, go out, buy yourself a coffee or tea, get a little fresh air, and be back in 10 to 15 minutes. I say, I'm watching. And then, or if it's middle of the session where I say, okay, why not all of us take a short break of 10 to 15 minutes? You can go get a coffee, get fresh air, and come back. And there was this one day when I was teaching level 4 students, and 90% of my class was exhausted and tired. They were literally sleeping. And I observed that the moment I entered, they're usually cheerful and, they're, hi, how are you? And there's this energy in the classroom. And that day it was like, yeah, you're here. So what I did is I said, would you like to, let's not study today. And they were very happy about it. I said, what we'll do is we'll play a game, but that game is something that comes from my childhood. And they're like, okay, fair enough. So that gave them little energy and excitement. And then I said,
what was the game?
Oh, it's a head, shoulder, and toe.
Yeah, that's great.
Everyone had to stand.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to put my hands on his head, and then and if I say head, then everyone has to say, put the hand on head. If I say shoulder, it should be shoulder, and then they have to touch the feet. And what the game is all about, you say head, but you're putting your shoulder on your hands on your shoulder. So once the student was out, I moved out, and that person had to come and do the same thing. And apparently in 10 minutes, they forgot that they were tired because they were laughing and giggling, and
that's so good.
They got the energy back, and and it was funny because except me, no one was aware of the game, and I realized, oh my God, I'm too good.
No, this is really fascinating. And Sonal, I can see that all your teaching is about the human touch, very much about it. But do you use any tools or any resources where you keep yourself updated on teaching methodology or anything like that? Do you recommend anything like that, or all you focus on is the human touch?
I mean, what I really recommend anyone, even after teaching for 15 years, what I strongly recommend to any tutor is do at least 4 or 5 observations. Even today, I make sure that I'm observing at least 4 to 5 tutors every term. And they're usually my friends. I request them, can I just be there to learn how they're handling things, how they go ahead with teaching? What is it that's something new that they're using? Then, of course, there is this technological element. So we have simulations and online teaching, and there are multiple online polls and the forms, and there are other things that could be used. But that's only a small part of your session, and that could be a small part of activity. It's like, like role plays or debate or case studies. So for me, those tools are just a part of your teaching day, and it cannot be 100% online.
This is really fascinating, and this is why we also started the academic room where lecturers can share their best practices, because observations are great, but it's so hard to get to know what others are doing, and it's a very good way just to observe them. And thank you very much for coming to the academic room and sharing so many golden nuggets. I'm always learning from you, and also today I just made a lot of notes, and it will really, really change some of the things I will implement into my own teaching as well. And thank you so much. So Sonal Jain was our guest today, Associate Dean and lecturer with more than 20 years of experience. Thank you very much, Sonal, for being here. I will add the bio into the description. Please read it. Please follow Sonal, and please come back to the next episode of the Academic Room. Goodbye.